There's $750 billion in U.S. LNG that you and the White House want to sell to Europe in just 3 years. The numbers sound amazing on paper. Is that number, reachable? In other words, is the infrastructure able to be built to accommodate those types of sales?
Well, Brian, fantastic to be with you here at Gas Tech 2025 in Milan. The demand is certainly there between AI and the European countries that are all trying to get off Russian gas. The whole point of being here this week is for us to, following on the heels of President Trump's historic trade deals that have been discussed. That $750 billion, though, is U.S. energy, not just LNG.
Okay.
LNG would be one of the easiest things, put it on a ship, send it over here, displace Russian gas, drive their market share to zero in Europe, drive U.S. market share up. That's great for America, great for our allies, and we stop funding Russia's side of the war. I mean, when we've got Iran, when people are buying Iranian sanctioned oil, when they're buying Russian sanctioned oil, then they're using that to fund terrorism and wars against us and our allies. If we stop buying their products, then we're not funding two sides of war. I say we, us plus our allies. Yeah. So it is it's an imperative. So this President Trump's energy strategy, sell energy to our friends and allies so they don't have to buy it from our adversaries. That's the energy strategy in a sentence. But also it's about peace and prosperity. President Trump's solving all these conflicts around the world. The way we're going to solve these last couple, part of it is with the economics of cutting off the economic engine that is allowing Russia and Iran to fund their activities.
I think we've talked about it on CNBC. I don't know many others have talked about the fact that Russia is selling record amounts of LNG to Europe. They're not selling pipeline gas because Nord Stream got blown up, but they are selling record amounts of LNG. Numbers are a little fuzzy, call it $8 billion per year. Does the U.S. have the export capacity to displace that Russian LNG?
Well, we're building it, and we're building it fast. There have been 5 separate approvals in the first 7 months of the Trump administration. Remember, a year ago, if we were having this conversation, the Biden administration had put a pause on even finishing construction of any LNG export facilities, one of the craziest decisions ever made by any administration. I mean, it's bad for America, bad for our allies, bad for the world, but day one, flip that around, let's get going. Some of the projects that are going on the Gulf Coast, these are 16, 18, $20 billion projects, each one of them, and each one of them can export enormous amounts of LNG. So we're going large on the Gulf. And then, of course, as you know, President Trump has made it a priority with the LNG pipeline in Alaska. We have an opportunity in the coming years for us to sell energy to all of our Pacific allies, part of the historic trade deal that just got signed with Japan that President Trump and the trade team all worked on. That's going to have Japanese investment coming into the U.S., South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam, all of our Pacific allies would benefit from getting LNG from Alaska. 8 days from Anchorage to Tokyo. It's 24 to 27 days from the Middle East for their supply today. And countries like Japan, 120 million people living in the size of North and South Dakota with no oil and gas whatsoever, they need more LNG from ever. So U.S. is really teed up for the long term to be a reliable, trusted supplier to our allies, both in the Pacific and in Europe.
Well, and CNBC, of course, was on that trip with you and Secretary Wright and EPA Administrator up to North Alaska. Can you give us, it's been 3 months, can you give us an update on where that project stands? Because I've talked to the companies, they're like, Brian, we'll put our natural gas in that pipeline, they just don't want to spend the money to build it. So where do we stand right now?
Well, we know that there are the sources where the funding can come from to build the pipeline. We continue to fly through all the permitting processes, and I have every expectation that there's going to be shovels in the ground in that project within the next year.
You are the Secretary of the Interior, but it is amazing when you actually look at it. You know, we're going to talk to Secretary Wright tomorrow. He's the Secretary of Energy, but you have as much to do with energy as he does because you control the permitting on lands. Talk to us about, I know we're at Gas Tech, but we have to talk about wind. Because we've been in this, we need all energy phases of the United States, but apparently we don't need offshore wind. Many people would say that's a short-sighted decision.
Well, they might, but I think that on the all the above should have had a qualifier when people were talking about all the above. It should all the above that can provide affordable, that's key. Reliable, that means 7 by 24, means dispatchable. Dispatchable means when I want it, I can get it, and when I don't want it, I don't have to get it. Those are criteria for that, and then also supports the health of our whole grid. And when you take a look at the intermittent sources, the unreliable and the expensive sources like solar and wind, you don't know when the wind's going to blow. We do know when the sun's going to shine, and it's not 24 hours a day. And so building out transmission, say, from a solar field to a customer, there's only electrons running on that at night. I mean, you're doubling the cost, building all this wind infrastructure, and then when the wind's not blowing, you're not transmitting any of that. So in offshore, particularly challenging. It can cost up to 3 times as much as onshore wind, and then we get into the issues with marine fisheries, with marine mammals like whales, radar interference. I mean, there's a whole host of things that now are literally not just to upset citizens who live along the coast, but actual lawsuits against how these projects were permitted under the Biden administration.
Do you see a future for some of these projects? I know the White House made a deal with, getting Empire Wind continued off the coast of Long Island. Revolution Wind of Orsted has been in trouble. Do you think there are concessions that can be made to keep some of these deals alive?
I think that the projects were under discussions with the governors and with the companies, in discussions with them while we're also finishing the reviews that we've been asked and required to make through the executive orders. So those things are both happening, but I can't say for certain because some of these projects are a literal train wreck in terms of their economics. And if we were to complete them, then we're just locking in billions and billions of taxpayer money, which might be going to a hedge fund. It's not doing anything to help stabilize the grid, and it's not a great source of electricity at all. People tell me, hey,
where'd the money go? But by the way, hundreds of billions committed under the IRA, 3% energy, I think it was 3% energy production, now 3% energy production a couple years later. Where's the money?
Well, the money, those tax credits were transferable, and so depending on how they took advantage of either the investment tax credit or the production tax credit, it could have been transferred to another company inside of a large hedge fund that actually had profits that needed the tax credit. So it is these
So
things,
it may not have gone to a project, it may just have gone to some hedge fund guys that are already rich.
It did. They invested, they paid for to harvest those tax credits out of these projects. So the biggest value of offshore wind wasn't the wind, because what's the value of electricity if you flip the switch and you don't know if it's going to come on or not? I mean, it's like that's what unreliable is. You literally don't know. But what the value was the tax credits, and the tax credits, you get rid of the tax credits, which through the big beautiful bill, those are gone in the future. There'll be no one will build offshore wind. You talk to any of the energy companies here, I've talked to some even this morning, no one is going to build offshore wind. It's non-economic, it's triple the cost of onshore.